And when I see today movies about Katyusha, I'm start to afraid again.
The time of waiting is the worst time, waiting for the bombs to fall.
Motula, a quiet, peaceful town, like a Swiss village with Mount Hermon hovering in the distance. Motula sits on the northern border with Lebanon, amid the pastoral setting and rolling hills. It's here that we find the good fence, a symbol of Israel's attempt at normal relations with her neighbors. But the attempt isn't always successful, because Motula has been hit time and time again by Katyusha rockets, cannon fire, RPGs, and an increasingly sophisticated array of modern weapons, creating even more havoc in the lovely hilltop village, causing extensive damage to property, sending people to the hospital or to the cemetery. The border is only 20 yards from these homes, so they are covered in steel. But even steel isn't enough protection to keep out Katyusha rockets. The fence is electrified, patrolled, guarded, and it's all that separates Motula from hostile neighbors across the border. Shiite neighbors, Amal militia, the PLO. This is the last barrier against terrorist infiltrators. This is all that keeps back enemies bent on destruction from attacking. Attacking the people who work along the border. Or the youngsters who play there, who are always under guard wherever they go in Motula, whatever they do. Townspeople who have helped to build a modern Jewish state, who try to live a normal life along the border, who say that they are simply trying to keep that border from shifting to Kiryat Shmona, Haifa, or even Tel Aviv. The Shiite village of Kfar Kilya is just beyond the fence. From here, suicide car bombers leave their families for their version of heaven amid the flames. Motula is on the borderline. Israel's Prime Minister, Shimon Peres.
For many good years, Motula represented a dream for a different relations with our northern country, with our northern neighbor, Lebanon. Unfortunately, Lebanon fell to pieces, became a very extreme and violent way of life. I wouldn't even say a country. And our people, who looked for peace and friendship, became victims of terror, of Katyushas, of uninterrupted tension.
Motula was established in 1896 by Baron Edmond de Rothschild. He helped the early settlers who were specially chosen for their ability to defend the then isolated site. Motula was an agrarian community, bespeaking all that was good and part of the old Yishuv. Today, Motula's economy is still based on agriculture. 70% of the townspeople are salaried employees, mostly with the municipality. The others find work, if they can, in nearby moshavim, kibbutzim, and of course, in Kiryat Shmona. There is also the leisure time business. Motula serves as a summer resort because of its cool mountain breezes and fine, quaint restaurants. There are parts of Motula where poverty is evident, where new housing is rapidly becoming blight, where what little work there is doesn't pay the bills. And the bills are high in Motula because everything in its own way is imported. There is a small grocery store open only a few hours a day. There is no cinema, no theater, no toy shops. This is the town's only gas station.
Very boring in the nights, in the evenings. And the young, some young, we don't got anything to do. Just walked around, and that's it.
It was Canadian help that turned the old schoolhouse into a modern community center. What does Gordie Brown of Canada think Motula needs today?
Giving facilities, sports facilities, entertainment facilities, all kinds of cultural activities so as to keep them living in the northern cities.
I think that Canadian Jewry should do everything in their power to help the parents who remain living in the northern settlements to make the children as comfortable and as happy as possible.
The community center is a focus point for the day camp, giving these children a release from the constant pressure of border life. And at the community center, the elderly meet to help their hands stay busy, making wooden toys that delight the young. Here, the town gathers for its own entertainment. And during hard times, it's here that soldiers send messages back home. Fourth-generation Motula resident, Mayor Yossi Goldberg.
Motula sits on the top of what we say the finger of Galilee. Yes, and we sit on the border. It's a strategic place.
Psychologists believe that in a time of crisis, information is essential to keep fear under control. So, Yossi has a plan for a two-way cable TV hookup between the town's 70 shelters, and a plan for a necessary recreational center, giving the residents a well-deserved higher quality of life on the border.
So we know that we need to stay here, yes, and to give the people here and our children a normal life and future.
But the future in Motula isn't always what people anticipate. In Motula, the unexpected occurs. Tragedy struck 17-year-old Chaim Kint while he was reading one night at home. A bazooka rocket went through the thick walls and struck Chaim in bed.
נפל הבזוקה וזה נפל חתיכות מהפגז.
He was sitting in bed reading, and the rocket came through the window. It blew him apart. It cut him up. There was muscle and skin and blood all over the wall.
וזה קרה במושבה עוד אחד, בחור בגיל 26, הוא היה מחותן כבר.
Avram Kint is a religious man, like the original founders of the Mosheva. He came to Motula in 1950 after surviving the Nazi horrors at Bergen-Belsen. Will he leave Motula when the bombs fall again?
I
love it here. I'm used to it here. It takes me a long time to get used to a place. Another terrorist fired his weapon at this house, murdering Yaakov Friedman while he was simply pouring a cup of coffee in the kitchen. In the quiet of their homes, there is no peace. Not in Motula. Bruria Amitai owns a restaurant in Motula, a restaurant with a beautiful view of the hills, except the hills are in Lebanon, and sometimes the view isn't so beautiful. Bruria is a survivor of the camps, of Auschwitz. What was her reaction when, while serving lunch in her restaurant, she saw a car explode near an army truck, killing 22 Israeli soldiers?
The car bomb was here, and it was a command car from the army and the jeep, and here is a big car from the army. I see the bomb car was a big explosive and a big fire, and I see from here what is very much people from the army is dead. I see that.
Would Katyushas, car bombs, RPGs deter Bruria Amitai from living in Metula? Would she leave?
This is my home. Bombs or not bombs, it is my home.
Sarah is the town librarian. She has lived in Metula for 40 years. She's used to the pressure. But Rivka Jacobi has only lived in Metula for 17 years. Does she take things as easily as Sarah? Is she afraid?
Of course I'm afraid. There's no one becomes immune to these things. Nobody's a big hero. The things fall and they make a terrific noise and you know they can kill someone and they're very frightening. One of the problems when you're sitting in the shelter is that you are alone. You feel that no one else exists but the people you're sitting with. Everything else has been, you can hear bombs falling overhead. It's a very frightening situation. I remember the time I really began to be frightened was the time when I was teaching in a grammar school in Kiryat Shmona. The kids heard a dull thud and they got up and ran down to the shelter. And just as we got all of the kids down to the shelter, a Katyusha rocket hit the school, went through the roof and through 2 floors. I went back to the school and I saw the hole through the ceiling and into the floor. And I felt I had to sit down because I saw the room destroyed where I had stood and children had sat.
Twins Nimrod and Maron Rosenthal grew up in Metula. Their lives are intertwined with nearby bomb shelters. Their mother, Dorit, teaches school in Kiryat Shmona. She is an 8th-generation Israeli, a great-granddaughter of a Metula founder. She explains about shelling she heard a few nights earlier. The first time I heard the shelling, I also jumped. I tried to discern if it was really Katyushot. Maron cried. Baron was very scared. What did you do when the shelling came? I started counting. I started to count. I tried to fall asleep, but I couldn't force my eyes closed. I covered my ears. All I heard were bombs. Yes, I prayed. I said, Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Then, there is always the fear of running back to the shelter, hoping you can make the trek without a Katyusha falling on your head. Today, partly because of outside help, there is a new shelter, just a few feet from their house. Because in Metula, mothers don't wish for a new washing machine, but for a shelter as close to home as possible. Dorit says Nimrod and Miron, even 13-year-old Tuvia, suffer from nightmares and bedwetting. Still, Tuvia says,
and I don't want to leave Metula. My grandfather and my grandmothers live here in Metula. When the Arabim attack Metula, they don't leave Metula. I don't live too.
You would expect the people of Metula to have problems, and they do. Problems similar to shell shock, which once only front-line soldiers got. But then, Metula is on the front line. Muli Lahat is a psychologist who deals specifically with problems of stress brought on by living under attack.
Well, I think that there is what I call a ongoing cost of living on the border, which is being all the time on the alert. They have to think during the day when they are going anywhere, where is the next shelter if something, God forbid, happens. Thinking that you don't know what will happen tomorrow, not really knowing if school will be, if you can play in the schoolyard, etc. But there will never be a complete silence here. And that's a loss of hope. And that's a very great psychological cost that we have to understand. People will cope with it, but that's as if you have lost part of your body, you see, and that's a long process until you get used to cope with that fact.
According to a recent poll, 40% of the residents of Metula would leave when the bombs begin to fall again. Few would admit that they are the ones who want to leave. Who would it be? What can be done to make them stay? Metula is an important place because without Metula and the towns like it, who would sit there on the borderline between hope and despair, between peace and war? Would you raise your children in Metula? Your grandchildren? These people have done it and are doing it. Metula is on the borderline between life and death, between tranquility and terror. Metula, we are not alone, and neither are they. At least, until the bombs begin to fall again.